And welcome to the Do One Thing Well podcast here with Team Hiut. First up in conversation, we have the material science company on a mission to save our environment, which is Pangaia.
Pretty amazing. I think they're one of the most interesting companies on the planet right now. And so basically we're doing this as a research project to find how to do one thing well. The component parts of doing one thing well are many. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper on those things. So let's start. So it's a material science brand. So most clothing companies don't start out that way. And so the backstory is they have been going from 2018 and they are selling $75 million.
Yeah, in 2020.
In 2020. So you would think, oh my God, that's an incredible growth. But actually they spent 10 years in a lab working out material science. And so like the overnight success isn't quite overnight. It took them, they're 13 years into it. So
yeah, they really are so rigorous with our research. They're purely that science is really what excites them, really what they focus on. It's almost as if the fashion is a byproduct of that. It's they're so committed to it.
Yeah. And just so we know, Pan means all-inclusive, and Gaia means Mother Earth, so Pangaia. So that's a little bit of stuff to know. It's good. What else do we need to talk about? Backstory, multiple founders.
Yeah, so there's Miroslava Duma, who started a company called Future Tech Lab a few years before Pangaia. And she then collaborated with Amanda Parks as another co-founder, and they created a collective of artists and scientists and formed Pangaia. So there isn't one sole founder, but it has kind of grown out of this Future Tech Lab. Like seed funding.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's grown from there. And it's quite nice that they don't have one sole founder because there's not one person to emphasize one thing on.
Yeah. And so the team is 60+% women.
Yeah. They've said
Look at this percentage.
No, that
was really good.
It's just like here. So they have places in London, Florence, and New York. Factories mostly in Portugal.
Yeah.
So there are three goals which are pretty interesting. Yeah, to make the impact visible. That's good. To work towards a better future and to become Earth positive. Oh, so the turning point. Let's talk about the turning point. So when they started, they went to a, what would you call it, a festival?
It's been nicknamed a brand orgy.
Brand orgy. So, okay. Called Complex Con. I mean, obviously, con over here means different thing, but I think over there means conference. So that's good. But the interesting thing is Complex Con has some pretty interesting people at the head of it.
Yeah, they're chaired by Pharrell Williams and Virgil Abloh and I don't know.
Takashi Murakami. And actually, is that right? Colette's Sarah Andelman, she's involved. So like, she's a pretty cool cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's most places. Yeah, pretty good. Okay, so, but when they launched, they did this, like, I don't know how you describe it, like sort of, they didn't put a sweatshirt on a hanger and go, aren't we cool? They did this incredible event.
It's no ordinary launch, is it? It's everything's been considered, everything's been carried out impeccably. It's all down to the last very detail. It's it
is kind of like fashion meets science meets nature.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way of saying it, Abby. Great. But it was designed by somebody who has some pedigree at doing this stuff.
Alexandra de Patek.
And so I guess what we're trying to find out here, this isn't luck. This isn't just like an accident. They go and work with some of the best people at what they do. So that Alex guy, he's obviously top notch at what he does. And so when they launch, of course, they suddenly steal the show.
Yeah. And Miroslava Duma has been called one of the most connected women in fashion by Vogue. So she's got the networking that she needs.
So yeah, so pedigree, like is everywhere here. So again, not luck. They've got a collection of, like both scientists, networkers, website builders, conference, stand builders.
Yeah, the art in here is what is as much as the science, really. It's that combination of art and science is genius. It's just bringing those two worlds together, because again, we're very used to scientists perhaps not having that creative flair. They really have adopted that, brought that in, worked with experts in their field.
Yeah, so I mean, after launching, they had to wait like 30 days before their turning point happened. So I mean, it's a long time. Most companies have to wait maybe a decade, but they waited a month. So I think, Pharrell wearing their stuff and putting it on Instagram, that was a big moment for them, wasn't it? So their business model is pretty interesting.
Yeah, they have so many different revenue sources, but in the short term, the Pangaia drives their revenue, and then in the long term, that it's going to be their materials and science that drive their revenue. So they're going to they already have patented some of their fabrics, and then they're hoping to sell them and outsource them to other companies.
So in a way, like Pangaia is their advert for their business model, which is patents of, a different way to do, or the technologies of, the clothing.
Yeah.
And, just like maybe Intel Inside was selling the technology, or Gore-Tex was selling the technology, in a way, maybe this is what this is too. And because they want to make stuff for lots of brands, not just Pangaia.
Such a clever business model, again, because mentioning the Intel thing, it's like no matter what computer you bought, whether like Compaq or something like that, quite a name from the past now, really. But if you had the Intel there on you, it was a mark of quality. And when Apple took on Intel is when they kind of really took a jump as well. So it's, Well,
I think they're selling the technology, not the clothing. So, I think that's where they're really doing something quite different.
I was going to say the one thing as well is they talked about they've been in the experimentation phase and now they're moving on to the optimization phase. They equated it to, imagine they are now iPhone 1 is where they see themselves at. Oh, really? So they've broken a lot of boundaries, but they think this is just
the early days.
Yeah.
And I think they do endorsements, influencers in a quite unique way. I think most brands try and get an influencer involved. They seem to do things very differently. They have these amazing people wear their stuff almost like organically, pardon the pun, but they don't really push those. No. So but the ones that they do push are perhaps the smaller, lesser known, people. I don't know.
Yeah, so they're either working with like makers who are on the rise, like independent makers. So they did a collaboration with a Japanese woodworker, which sold out in like 24 hours. And then they also did one with the UN Environment Ambassador, where all the funds went to the wildlife conservation, and that sold out in 24 hours too. But then kind of on Instagram, you see the likes of like Justin Bieber and Kourtney Kardashian, which obviously gives a lot of hype to the brand. That means that they get to stay true to their values as well.
Yeah, so they're not pushing the big influencers. They're actually pushing perhaps the more interesting influencers. So that's pretty interesting because not everybody's doing that.
It's a nice position to be in as well, isn't it? Yeah. Like to have them endorse your clothes without you endorsing them.
Yeah, it's a great position to be in.
Just the confidence as well to not want to push those then, to not fall into the trap of, okay, Pharrell's giving us this attention, we'll just run with this, we'll just use this in all our ads, we'll kind of sell ourselves out. They really haven't done that. They've gone, okay, that's cool. Let's not worry about entirely. That's just part of us.
Yeah. So I think that way then there's more depth to it, as opposed to, we got the coolest cat when, our thing for this moment in time. But, there just seems a bit more depth.
And same with their models and things. All kinds of, they're all ages or genders.
Yeah, really good diversity.
Yeah, which is quite rare.
Yeah, I think what we're going to learn in this process is to do one thing well. You have to do many, many, many things bloody well. It's not just one thing. So visual identity, man, like they do this really well. I mean, actually they do a lot of things well, but they do this particularly well.
No, I think it's, again, we talk about confidence just now. So there's no make the logo bigger here. And in fact, there's no logo at all on the front of the shirts. In kind of pride of place on every kind of product they create is a paragraph of text. And it's basically a K label on the outside. They're really proud of the ingredients. They really want to show that off. So yeah, totally against convention. Rather than use, well, we'd always think just use one word, use two words. There's 10, 15 paragraph of words describing what the material is made out of and all these features that it has. So again, it's just going against convention, being really confident in that, really sticking true to what they do. And yeah, the logo does appear, but it's small at the back, and they really, really relentlessly consistent with it. So whatever the product is, that's how it's done. It's, yeah, that consistency, again, combined with confidence, the repetition, it's really works.
Is there anyone on the team who's particularly responsible for this? Is there some person that we found out or not?
We've tried, I think.
Me and Leanne were looking at this today. There is, because they are a collective, there is no one person who does all their social media. They have many great people. Some who used to work for Lululemon, and they've worked for some big companies, but there is not one defining person who masters their social media.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as a group effort, it's pretty incredible, really. I mean,
it really does work as well, because whenever I wear anything by Pangaia, guaranteed, because there's small text on my chest, people will come up to you and read it. Like, curiosity definitely wins in that battle rather than shouting at them.
Yeah.
People want to come up, they want to read, what's that about? It, yeah, really does pique interest as well.
Cool.
I also think it works with having the founders like influence their social media, because one of the founders used to work for like virtual reality companies, and so when they launched the flower down coat, they made a sort of like VR type world that you walked into, and the jacket was there, and that was like their campaign for it.
Right.
So she was a founder, not a social media person.
Yeah.
It's nice how they make it all come together. Science meets art meets high tech.
Yeah, I think they're using their skills, and they have different skill sets particularly well. So
the only thing we haven't mentioned quickly though is colour as well.
Yeah,
colour is such a huge part of their brand, their visual identity, and their products and their materials.
Yeah, and just just to go with the colour thing, they've chosen 7 of their colours.
Yeah, and they have specific meanings. There was one that was a clownfish, I remember.
Yeah,
It's orange.
Clownfish, yeah, of course. What else would you call it? But 7 primary colours is their palette, and obviously they go off palette as well. So, but it's really well thought through when you actually, do some, if you deconstruct what they do.
Absolutely. And I think it's to be able to balance and to show that innovation, the technology, to really, be able to present that really clearly is so incredible.
Because, to make something scientific and actually you want to read it is 2 different things. I mean, we've got a patent. Oh, okay, snooze. But they're making what they are doing accessible. So I think they do that particularly well.
Because I did take the quote of how they did the colour. Again, we're talking about how science comes into that. And yeah, it's just magic. But so Pangaia's scientists take naturally occurring dye, for example, a flower with a red petal, and sample the DNA, splicing it into a microorganism. When you grow that in the lab, you basically feed it as part of its metabolic process. And then that organism then creates a dye. And that's the dye they use to make the colours.
Right.
So yeah, it's science fiction, it's magic. And yeah, I don't know how they do it, but the science is really strong. It is really.
Yeah, I mean, they're literally coming at it from a different angle, aren't they? So when you come at something from a different angle, you are going to appear very different to the rest of your world, because they're not really a clothing company. They just happen to make clothes.
In terms of the materials as well, they want to own their own means of production, which typically fashion companies just don't do. So they've said that their factories are actually more like microbreweries. That's how they describe them, because to grow microfungi and these things that they're using to make fabrics, you don't have a traditional looking factory, and none of the manufacturing techniques are the same. So they basically have to try and blend this world of the processes of manufacturing we already have and the amazing material that they're coming up with had to blend at some point. And they've said that's what has taken them so long over the 10 years to get to that point.
Wow.
I mean, I'd love to see, one of their factories. It'd be great to go and visit. Wouldn't it? So, okay. So, I mean, materials, they do that well. Okay.
Yeah, everything that they use within their fabric is renewable or alternative resources, or even the bio and the lab grown stuff, which we've spoken about, and everything's sustainable. But their flower down is one of the things that they've patented that we've mentioned before, but it's just crazy that they've made a coat out of flowers. It's just incredible.
So how does that work? I mean, any flowers? Just I can go to my garden. Wildflowers.
Wildflowers. So they have fields of wildflowers, but it's also like a byproduct. So it's not grown specifically for the coat itself. And then there's the biopolymer, which is made from corn, which is combined with the wildflowers that creates the thermal properties for it to be warm. And then they've got aerogel in it as well, which then creates the strength of it.
Right.
But all the stuff that they use is all regenerative resource. Yeah. So it can naturally regrow back to its full size again.
Wow.
So yeah, they're not impacting the planet, but using what Mother Earth is giving us.
I think that's what's so interesting about them, because they have the ability to take, we all have those ideas. Let's go and make stuff from like flowers. You go, oh yeah, good luck with that, Dave. But they actually know how to do it. Slightly annoying.
Even their peppermint oil treatment that they put on their t-shirts to reduce odor.
Oh really?
Yeah. So less water, less energy.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, to think about how long it took them to develop that, just the flower down. And I know, for example, they were saying it took them years and years, like they had the idea and it was a real battle against the science to make that work. It was kind of, their passion was really there to, get it over the line. And not that I could afford on the jackets. They've got a little hole in the back, like a transparent hole where you can look through to see the kind of flower down as well. Apparently it doesn't look like flowers or anything like that.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Like potpourri is what I was expecting.
Oh really?
Very romantic.
Oh really?
But it doesn't look like that. But yeah, and again, it's like you think how many goose down or duck down or whatever, how much of that we use, and it's not a great process, really, is it?
No.
Taking it off animals. So
And the lab where they made the flower down usually works with the European Space Agency, so it's like even more crazy. Gosh.
So the collaborations are with like NASA and great.
So they're just really poorly connected, basically.
But yes, I think the materials are, in a way, they spent most of the time on the materials, haven't they? In the lab, doing the research. And if they are going to do all this patent stuff and, sell in the technology, that technology is material science that they are selling. So they've done it well. Okay, so we move on to the next slide, and that is website and social media.
Yeah, the website is incredible. Like I said earlier, the way they are able to present products, their innovations, and the science is just so well thought out, just makes it so interesting. It's an educational, good on the website. It's actually really educational, and you're shopping. It's like no other experience, really.
Yeah. And so the lady who was responsible for the website had some experience at a museum, or was it?
Amanda Parks, one of the co-founders, used to work for the Science Museum in London. Okay. Creating their exhibitions.
So you can start to see all these different skill sets from these different, industries are coming together to form this thing. So this thing is not luck. This is like your ultimate rock band. You go, oh my God, you got all these amazing people doing this stuff. It's incredible. Social media is something they do.
Social media, they've got such a strong brand identity. Again, I think that's in the use of colors. All the shoots. I think that goes with it. Again, they just merge product, colors, everything they're doing. It just comes back into their brand identity. And it's just so strong. It's
that consistency again, isn't it? And quality of execution as well. It's just everything is very well executed, very well rounded. There's nothing sloppy. There's nothing that's seems not part of the plan. And something else they do really well is their version of My Hiut, where they'd have people contributing shots of themselves, selfies and things like that, which they use really well then to show how people are wearing their styles. And again, putting people like Pharrell is on the same level as somebody who just submitted. I don't think even if I submitted one, they'd put me on the same level. In theory, they would. They brand guidelines for solutions.
Yeah, so they do community well now.
Very well, and you can see that, in their Instagram, and that's on their website as well.
They're also really consistent with their posting. Like they post every day, like one grid feed every day. And
so 3 blocks or
one image every day, and then they have like about 5 stories a day.
Okay, wow. So they're pretty active. Okay, let's look at some data then. So I just want to, focus on that. Actually, we beat them at Twitter. And the rest, they absolutely, they left us a long time ago. So Instagram, 871,000 people, pretty good. So Instagram is their main place, right? So I guess their main focus. TikTok's coming up, but
in terms of doing the one thing well as well, though, for social media, their strategy is clearly we're doing Instagram. That's where we are. I think whether the change of the tide now where TikTok is catching up a little, but their focus is on Instagram.
They're such a visual company, aren't they? It makes sense.
And they have those colors, the palette. I mean, it is literally born for Instagram. It is a perfect Instagram company.
And again, because of that consistency, they don't need to think about it too much each time as well. They rely on that system they've built in a very scientific way, in a strategic way, that then that fuels that feed.
And the TikTok videos, that they're sort of more fan videos, reposts rather than original.
So they're not.
So they're like engaging their community, but they're not spending a whole load of time making TikTok videos.
Okay. So what are the lessons we can learn then? Or was that, have I skipped a beat?
No, I think we're just saying about kind of recapping really about that's the kind of strap in they go for, designing a better future. And I think that's something they generally do stick to and seem to be really aiming for. And I think again, it's just about asking ourselves then what we think we've done well. And I think a few things have come up in terms of collaboration and pulling up experts in from different fields. They do that really well. Things like balance as well. I think they do something, they kind of between those fields, then they weigh things up quite well in terms of not letting anyone overshadow it.
Their confidence as well, I think, by putting all of that tax on their t-shirts. I think it's just they're confident with everything they do, and their transparency is super clear.
And also their brand mission is apparent everywhere, from product to website to social media. You can stumble upon them and you'd instantly know what they're for and what they're about.
I mean, I actually haven't worn any Pangaia stuff. So from a design point of view, I mean, like my youngest and eldest absolutely love them. I mean, it's just like, they don't take them off. And I'm going, it's pretty interesting. So obviously they've got that aspect as well.
I think they do want to expand in the future they want to collaborate with other clothing brands so that knowing their audience, they can market to them. Because maybe you're not interested in tracksuits and hoodies, but
I think that's where them being a technology company will come into play. So that technology can go in many places. I think that's their big play. And actually, the Pangaia clothing company is really a beautiful, amazing advert for their science and their tech and their technology.
So that's the thing that's strange about this is we haven't mentioned the clothing much at all. And it's just like, let's just take it for granted that that's amazing. And it's just like forgetting how well they do that and how, like I said, how popular the products are and how on every level they're really engaged with.
You're buying into so much more
as well.
than the product. And that's a really incredible thing.
Yeah. So in short, they're doing lots of things well, but actually to do one thing well, you have to do many, many, many things well, and they certainly do that. So well done to them. And this is our research project. This is us trying to learn how to do one thing well, because that's what we want to do. So that's been good. Great. Well done. Cool.
And if you want to let us know in the comments if there's anyone you think that we should cover or think that would be good to research, then let us know.
Definitely. Over and out. So, lessons learned. See, we waited for that big truck to. It's not the same with that big truck. You missed the big truck, right?